He fit in the palm of a hand, no bigger than a thumb. Everyone said he wouldn't make it through the night. But when the vet looked closer, he refused to give up. What happened next wasn't just shocking. It became a story of survival the world would never forget. It was an ordinary morning when a family heard faint cries coming from their backyard. At first, they thought it was a bird, but the sound was too sharp, too desperate. Following the tiny whimpers, they discovered something that left them speechless. A newborn puppy, no larger than a thumb, shivering in the grass. The little creature was so fragile that he fit perfectly in the palm of a hand. His eyes were sealed shut, his fur barely covering his thin body, and his breathing so shallow it seemed he might stop at any second. The family exchanged worried glances. A puppy this small couldn't possibly survive on his own. Some even whispered. It was kinder to let nature take its course. But one thing was clear. He was alive, and he was fighting. Without hesitation, they wrapped him gently in a towel and rushed to the vet. When the family arrived at the clinic, the waiting room fell silent. People leaned forward, whispering in disbelief as they saw the bundle of towel open to reveal the tiniest puppy anyone had ever laid eyes on. He was smaller than most newborn kittens, his fragile body trembling with every weak breath. The vet approached, his brow furrowing as he studied the little one. "I've never seen a puppy this small," he admitted, carefully lifting him with a single hand. The room seemed to hold its breath. His chances, they're very slim. The words hit the family like a weight, but before despair could settle, the puppy let out the faintest squeak, a tiny sound that carried unexpected strength. It was as if he was declaring, "I'm still here. I want to live." The vet paused, his eyes softening. Against all odds, this little fighter wasn't giving up yet. The vet placed the puppy gently onto the examination table. For a moment, everyone leaned closer, straining to hear the faint rise and fall of his tiny chest. His breaths were shallow, uneven, each one sounding like it could be his last. The room grew painfully quiet. The vet pressed a stethoscope against the pup's chest, his expression tightening. "His heartbeat is barely there," he whispered. "He's fighting, but it's weak, very weak." The family's hearts sank. The puppy twitched faintly, his body struggling under the weight of survival. His nose wrinkled as if he were gasping for air, and a small whimper escaped his throat. The vet moved quickly. Oxygen was brought in, and he gently cupped the mask over the puppy's tiny face. "Come on, little one," he murmured, his voice steady but urgent. "Don't give up now." Every pair of eyes in the room locked on the fragile creature. Each breath he took felt like a miracle. Each second he survived felt like hope. The vet wasted no time. He placed the puppy inside a small incubator, adjusting the temperature to mimic the warmth of a mother's body. Tubes and wires seemed far too large for such a tiny creature, yet they were his only chance. Oxygen flowed steadily, and the soft hum of machines filled the room. Max, the vet's assistant, watched nervously. "Do you really think he can make it?" he asked quietly. The vet didn't answer right away. He knelt beside the incubator, eyes fixed on the fragile pup. "He's weaker than any I've seen," he admitted, "but he hasn't stopped fighting. That means we don't stop either." The puppy's tiny chest fluttered, each breath rattling like dry leaves in the wind. Yet, every so often, a stronger rise came, as though his body was refusing to surrender. Hours passed, with the vet checking every detail: heartbeat, temperature, oxygen levels. The family never left his side. And slowly, unbelievably, the tiniest spark of life began to steady. Dawn. The incubator's quiet hum had become a lifeline. The family sat close together, exhausted but unwilling to leave. Every sound the puppy made pulled their eyes back to him. At first, it was only the faintest squeaks, but then, one tiny, determined cry pierced the silence. The vet leaned in, startled. "That's his voice," he said softly, almost in awe. The puppy's legs twitched, weak but deliberate, as if he were trying to move. For such a fragile creature, even the smallest motion was monumental. Hope stirred in the room. The children clapped softly, whispering encouragement. The mother pressed her hand over her mouth, fighting back tears. For the first time, survival didn't feel impossible. The vet scribbled notes quickly, but his eyes betrayed a smile. "He's stronger than I thought," he admitted. "If he keeps this up, he just might have a chance." And against all odds, The smallest puppy in the world was proving everyone wrong that as the hours passed. The tiny pup's breaths grew steadier. His chest, once barely moving, now rose and fell with fragile rhythm. The vet leaned back in his chair, exhaustion etched on his face, but his eyes never left the incubator. He had seen countless cases before, but this was different. This little one should not be here, he whispered, voice breaking. Nature said he wouldn't survive the night, yet he's still fighting. His hand trembled as he adjusted the oxygen line, blinking away the moisture in his eyes. The family noticed. "Doctor, are you crying?" the father asked gently. The vet smiled faintly, shaking his head. "Sometimes it humbles you. To see a creature this small, refusing to quit, reminds you why we fight for them." Tears slipped down his cheek. Despite his words, around the room, silence settled once more. The smallest puppy was teaching everyone the meaning of strength. The following morning, the clinic was unusually quiet. Sunlight streamed through the blinds, casting a warm glow over the incubator. Inside, the smallest puppy stirred. First, it was a twitch of his paw, then a faint squeak, and finally, his tiny eyes fluttered open for the very first time. Gasps filled the room. The children leaned closer, pressing against the glass. "He's looking at us," one whispered, tears of joy brimming in her eyes. The vet couldn't hide his smile. This is a miracle," he said softly. The little pup turned his head clumsily, his gaze landing on the family. Despite his fragile body, there was unmistakable determination in those tiny eyes. Moments later, the nurse offered a dropper of milk. To everyone's astonishment, the puppy latched on, drinking greedily, his tiny tail giving the faintest wag. Cheers erupted. The family hugged one another, relief washing over them. The battle wasn't over yet, but this was the turning point. The puppy wasn't just surviving. He was beginning to live. Weeks later, the fragile pup who once fit in the palm of a hand could now trot clumsily across the floor. His tiny barks echoed through the house, full of life and spirit. The family watched in amazement, remembering the night they thought he wouldn't survive. The vet visited again, kneeling to scratch the pup's head. "You've proven us all wrong," he whispered, smiling through misty eyes. The family knew they hadn't just saved a dog. They had witnessed a miracle of resilience. This little fighter taught them, and everyone who heard his story, that life should never be measured by size, but by determination. Sometimes, the smallest hearts carry the biggest lessons. Never give up, no matter the odds.